Um, First of all, I want to say it's fantastic to be together in the same room. A few of us did the PMM core class a couple of days ago. It was just great to interact with folks from different industries in the same room. Many of us, it's the first training in person we had done since the pandemic. And the conversations here have been fantastic. I think we've heard from companies of all different stages and all different industries and different roles, and that's what I want to talk to you about today, pivoting from pre-sales to product marketing. Who knows what pre-sales is? Okay, maybe 15% or so. You'll hear it called different things. When I first got into pre-sales, I didn't know what that meant. How do you sell something before you sell it? What's going on here? You'll hear it called different titles: a pre-sales engineer, a solutions consultant, a solutions engineer, a cloud engineer maybe. So I have a confession to make. I'm an engineer who wandered into marketing. And why would an engineer join marketing? It's one of those things, right? Like you take the red pill or the blue pill early on and you just follow that path. And those two tribes just don't interact a lot. It's sort of the idea. And also but there's a good reason why I did it, which is to have a greater impact. I'd been in a technology space in B2B data infrastructure for 20-something years and saw that the way to make a bigger impact to get to the moon, like the Artemis launch here, is to have a bigger stage with a bigger voice at scale. But how many people feel like this is how engineers view marketers? Does it ring true a little bit? And how do you react to that? Is this how you feel about engineers? Especially this part. They know everything. Even things they've never done themselves or read about, they have an opinion. They must be right. This point of view, this must be the new message you have to have. Because I'm an engineer, I know this technology space, right? As if that's the only role, persona, message, etc., right? I love the correct grammar part of this too. Words matter quite a lot, right? So this is my background. I reverse chronology there. I was just over 3 years in marketing. Came from a pre-sale solutions engineer background. All of that in the B2B data infrastructure space. And I love database technology. Even my fun stuff involves something like that. When I'm walking my sheepadoodle who's got a ton of energy, I'm listening to gong calls. I'll tell you what gong is later. That's a cheat code you wanna have. So what is Single Store? We're a database company. We're a new kind of database technology, not a database to look up contacts, but a database to build applications on. And we have a new approach to solving data in real time, to unify and simplify modern kinds of data to give you real-time experiences on your mobile phone, in SaaS applications, through APIs, et cetera. And we've got a lot of customers at different stages in different industries: Uber, Disney, IBM, et cetera. So what I want to talk about is just 3 tips for those who are pivoting from pre-sales and maybe any kind of practitioner, subject matter expert role into product marketing. And I looked at the PMA survey data for 2022. I was curious how many of us in this community have gone from an engineering or subject matter expertise role into product marketing. And I was surprised to see it's like less than 3%. And that's, I think, more commentary. That's sort of not my anecdotal observation being in B2B data infrastructure. Most people I have known or worked with from the pre-sale side with product marketing had some hands-on practitioner experience, software development or something like that. So maybe it's specific to that product niche, to that market niche. But I think as this community grows, you're going to see more of folks like me and engineers wandering into product marketing, I think. This might sound strange, this first one, to product marketers, sell at scale, but I'll explain these a little bit as we go on. And I want to give you concrete examples because this is the best place for subject matter experts to plug into the process and the framework. So what is a solutions engineer? What do they do typically? Here's sort of a typical day in the life of somebody in my space, that they're writing code, they're building customer demonstrations, They're helping customer success answer support tickets. They're sharing code on GitHub, if you know what that is. It's a source code repository to share code. They're taking calls with customers, right? They're talking to customers every day, all the time, not just the engineers, but various levels in the organization, from decision makers, sometimes in the C-suite, middle managers, et cetera. So there's just a ton of information that they're running from activity to activity, and they're also probably being called by product marketers like yourselves. Hey, that's a great insight. Could you write a tech paper on XYZ? Could you help update some solution pages for these industry verticals? Which is the calls I started getting a few years ago, quite a lot at my last company, when I was in this role. So what does a solution engineer bring to product marketing? You've got a lot of this subject matter expertise, depending on the kind of company you work for and sort of what their market penetration is. But you definitely know the product and the technology inside and out. You're going to know the market landscape. You've talked to a lot of users, and you have these customer relationships, and you have organizational models about how your target customers make decisions. You know how they're organized. You know how to help sales navigate these different things. These are all super useful skills for when you go into product marketing and you have to work, developing a sales enablement program with somebody on your sales side, right? Because you sort of know the ins and outs of this. You don't have some other tools you need, which are things that the PMA Alliance has done a great job of codifying, a set of frameworks and processes. The speakers in the last couple of days have shared their versions of these things as well. But there's so many other work streams. I would say the first thing that you experience, my experience coming into product marketing and just marketing as a whole, is just how disorienting it was with all of the various work streams and functions. I don't think the rest of the company and the other departments really understand how many different functions and how much actually in the recent years marketing has taken on more and more of the communication and sales process, et cetera, as digital self-serve has sort of expanded. Also, you want to do this at scale, you've got to get your story straight. What is the story for which audience, right? And these are the frameworks that you have to learn in terms of messaging framework, et cetera. So what does that look like? This is sort of the first thing you start to get involved in, at least for me. It's much, that engineer's point of view in that mug is a very narrow point of view. You're looking to create messages for broad audiences that have a consistent thread from top to bottom. So let's take a concrete example. Let's look at like one persona message, and I'll give you one of our examples here. So these are 3 messages for just one persona. And we're looking at what are just 3 core messages. Second column, well, how do you do that, right? What's the evidence you have for that? And what's your differentiation for competitors on this? So if you have trouble filling this out, there's the first thing you want to have to go clarify and create. This didn't happen on day one. This took a little bit of time, a lot of refinement. And you go back to that last slide, we have multiple personas, and we're still working on these other personas and messages as we've expanded our campaigns. But how does it look like in market? Like when you work with your demand gen team, you're not just doing messaging, you're often also writing the copy. And maybe it's outdoor advertising. And this is one of like 20 different channels and forms that you might have. People might say outdoor advertising is not how you reach these people, but this is placed on Highway 101 as you leave SFO going north into the city. So we know the demographics of a lot of those business travelers. And they see these signs, and we rotate these pretty frequently, actually. So cover your software as a service, cover your SaaS, use the world's fastest database. So if many companies are building a digital service for their users, software as a service is how they reach them. SignalStore is a new kind of database to make that happen. Secondly, you think about stages. When you're in pre-sales, you're not aware of the fact that you're obviously way down at the bottom of the funnel. You're trying to get them to go from trying to proofs of concepts, making value propositions based on business cases that you're writing and ROI, et cetera. So you have to like swim upstream quite a lot. And you have to understand what these stages are. And this is one view that we use to think about the stages, mainly for one of our developer personas. And this should look familiar, right? But you know, how do you do these things along the path here? So where does, you know, developers, where are they going to become aware of you for the first time? How can they discover who Single Store is, for instance? And developers like to learn. I think Danielle said yesterday, she gave a great list of developer media sites that you should be involved in, and some of those are listed here: Stack Overflow, Reddit, Twitter. But you also want to, developers like to be challenged. So there are various partners you can work with to create a hackathon. A hackathon, there are lots of different ways to form this. If you work with a partner like DevPost, they can help you refine that process and understand exactly what you want to achieve. We just finished this over the last 5 weeks. Actually, we have an award ceremony later today that's going to live stream. And we picked our winners, and there's some super interesting projects in this. And this serves two needs. First, it's just to reach a totally new audience. We reached just over 1.2 million developers with this in the outreach through various newsletters and things like that. And got a fair number of participants, just close to 550 there. And this is the first one we've run. So if anybody's thinking about this tactic, look me up. I'm happy to share my experiences on this. And engage with these developers. Oh, that's sort of blurry. But you know, as there's this movement in the developer space to build in the open. And those are your advocates that you could start to cultivate. Engage with them on social, enlist them as your judges. Marinelle is a judge. She'll be speaking later at 1 o'clock from SAS. And also, you know, respond and engage with them on social, LinkedIn, Twitter, et cetera. This is another way to get attention. This is a little bit controversial, perhaps. This is the same location, pretty much, on the 101. For those who are developers who don't know what a database is, first of all, there's this idea that you use a database for a specific need, and you have a database per workload. We're trying to break that mental model, essentially, that you can expect more from your database technology, that it can do multiple things in a single kind of system, a single database. So let's think about the next stage. Developers like to learn. I think that this survey from Stack Overflow, you should definitely be, if you're in product marketing and you're serving developers at all, definitely pay attention to the Stack Overflow surveys. This was the most recent one. So where do developers go for information? Stack Rank. They look at tech documentation. They look at Stack Overflow, blogs, how-to videos, written tutorials. That is a ton of content. And you sort of have to pick your battles as to what you're going to do first. For us, one of the gaps we found a few quarters back was, and we got this by talking to our business development team. We also looked at our data in terms of the funnel, where we're getting drop-off. And so we said, oh, well, perhaps to accelerate this and remove this friction point, we need more easily discoverable bite-sized content. And a lot of developers go to YouTube, actually, look for this. And you see that these are pretty short little segments. They also can be used later in the sales process. And they all tee up, typically, those first questions that we've heard through user interviews and such. And so this is a whole series that we're continuing to build out. Also, in written form, in the blog, like, what are the typical first objections that you start to hear? And again, the conventional wisdom is like use one type of database for transactions, a different type of database for analytics. So that's a sort of mental model we're trying to break through. And so in that way, it's a challenger sale, if you're familiar with that methodology. So we have thought leadership articles like this that help to explain, well, here's why you should believe it's not actually magic. It took 10 years of innovation in all these different areas to make this happen, to give you this kind of simplicity. You also want hard evidence. If you can get them learning about the mental model just so that they're more curious, then they're going to ask for, well, says who? You say this, but by what measure, by what objective measure. And in our industry, in our technology, especially for our database technology, there are well understood testing frameworks by standards committees like the Performance Council. And what's novel about this is, again, there are benchmarks for particular types of databases, and this study does three of them in a single study, shows you the performance on that and the total cost of ownership. This does not, you cannot do this in a couple of months or a few weeks. This took a couple of quarters to craft the whole study, look at the solution architecture, et cetera. But it's really fantastic. We've gotten a lot of good reception for it, and sales have been asking for third-party evidence and all the time. So it filled a gap that we had in our content map. So not just for, sequencing of journeys, but you want to look at this structurally from a content map. Who uses a content map, something like this? Yeah, I would really encourage it. This is sort of how we started. Now we have to build it out into a big spreadsheet and start looking at what has to be refreshed and retired and move on. But you see where we have links to the things where we've built those things in black are things that we're planning or we're planning to do. But putting it in a view like this, again by stage, helps you to really understand where those gaps are. And now you can start measuring the performance of these assets and determining if you've got the right quality, et cetera. So lastly, speaking to customers, this might seem like an odd one for somebody coming from sales or pre-sales, because that's all you do every day, all the time. But once you move into marketing, you get involved in so many of these other work streams, was my observation, that you sort of lose the touch of that weekly or daily cadence of talking to somebody. You're getting data instead in aggregate, which of course you have to have. You want all of that survey data, but it helps to go have some direct conversations to get more context. So how do you do that? And how do you do it in such a way that those interactions help you get to advocacy? So a few ideas here. Of course, there's lots of things that you want to listen to the customer through surveys, your own third-party surveys, net promoter scores. In the product, if you've optimized your product to look at individual usage patterns, you have that data analysis if you're doing the PLG sort of motion there. So you're reviewing that in your PLG reviews. Gong is a cheat code, I would say, because it allows you to listen at scale and search. Who uses Gong here or something similar to that? Yeah, I really encourage you to look at this kind of technology in the category. They market it as something called revenue intelligence, mainly targeted towards sales and sales management. But I'd say it has at least 6, 7 other functions that you can make use of as a product marketer. Mainly is what words are being used. Now, it's all AI transcribed. So for us, we'll hear things like SQL pronounced, which stands for Structured Query Language, SQL, but it will transcribe it as the sequel to a movie. So you have to sort of spend a little bit of time of giving it your lexicon. But you don't have to do a lot, you'll find. And now you can just search, for us, it's thousands and years of data on what's happening in those BDR calls, in the sales calls. You can test for sales execution. Did they give my message the right way? Did they do that deck in the right way as part of your sales enablement measurement? But you can also find new things like what are the new use cases and technologies that are being mentioned? And the beauty of it is you have all the context. You have the recorded video, you have the speakers, you have the transcription. It's all opt-in permission-based, right? So it's not all calls are recorded, but participants have to agree to that at the beginning of each call. The traditional ways to engage, like customer advisory boards, definitely do that. That's probably going to be set up by your product management team. Make sure you're invited into those. Make sure you review with your product management team what the agenda is. And this is where we've, in product marketing, had a great opportunity to test messaging that we were considering, one of the places, as we think about changing it. And of course, you're going to be aware you only have a few personas represented probably in that customer advisory board. So it's not all the data you need, but it's pretty valuable. Next, engage online. And you need some subject matter expertise. You can't do it all yourself. You have to enlist other subject matter experts, engineers who are building the product, customer success folks, pre-sales engineers. If you have a developer advocacy team, you want to use the developer advocates as well. And you want to be in those forums and those conversations organically, but also, surprisingly, things like Twitter ads have worked for us. And this is an actual quote from one of the viewers of this ad. You can tell by the copy, it's very super targeted to a particular situation. If you're an application developer, you know what MySQL is as a database. And in this case, this person had never heard of who we're referencing here. But it caught his attention quite well. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. And this is sort of what culminated within a few months, actually. And he tells the story here in his blog. And this is sort of typical of one persona and a kind of message like that resonated for the kind of outcome that he was looking for. So what Fathom is basically a privacy-first, privacy-aware Google Analytics. So as marketers or your content team, you're all using something like Google Analytics to measure that. And there's a lot of privacy concerns in how that's done. They solve these challenges, but they have to compete with Google for that user customer experience for marketers in the app. And they use single store for this. And he tells the story of all the different challenges he had that basically was summarized by a series of data bottlenecks that had to be broken. So just to summarize, pivoting from pre-sales to product marketing, you've got a lot of subject expertise you may not be totally aware of and not understanding how to plug it in to product marketing or marketing as a whole to be effective. So start with, if you want to sell at scale, start with the frameworks and systems. If you're an engineer, you just should realize, you're a systems thinker. Learn the systems of marketing, not just the MarTech systems, yes, but the processes, how these things get done at scale. And the PMA Alliance has fantastic content for this. That next, solve by stage. Get inserted where, when you're looking at, the funnel analysis, and you're looking for friction points. Because you've got some subject matter expertise, you can identify new ideas for content probably quicker. You could probably pattern match quicker than your other colleagues in marketing can do. Invite the other folks, in your developer evangelism, et cetera, to look at that data too. It's even better if you can share it in a weekly forum or put it in a wiki page internally so that more can look at this. And finally, speak to customers, not just through the traditional ways of the customer advocacy, advisory board, et cetera, but engage with them online. Encourage your subject matter experts to engage them online. So with that, I thank you for your time and happy to take questions.
Any questions from the audience to start? We get Slido going. Dominic, I have a question. Just curious, who does your creative work? Internal or agency?
It's in-house.
In-house.
We've recently started to do a little agency work in creative. Yeah.
Nice.
But mostly it's been in-house tradition.
Yeah, it's impressive. Got one in the back there.
Hey, quick question on the content map you had there. You have a whole bunch of ungated and gated content. Do you decipher that by personas, or how do you go about figuring out what you keep gated, ungated? Is it just the value you perceive? Can you just delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's an ongoing kind of discussion. If it were up to me, it would all be ungated, because our biggest challenge is awareness, and so I want it to be discoverable through any channel, like YouTube SEO, Google search SEO, within forums, So if it's gated, you're not going to be able to participate as much. And that's sort of where we started to move, is to put more of the educational and discovery material. So we'll do derivative content, like take our free online training course. which has 20 different modules, and then create 2-minute video segments that summarize them and put them on our YouTube channel, and then hashtag it. So that is where you can create ungated content from things that are gated. And the training is only gated in that somebody has to create a free login. But that's enough friction that they might not do it until they're like, I don't know if I have this problem yet, but it's curious, it's interesting. That billboard, Cover Your SaaS, caught my eye. But they'll watch a 2-minute YouTube video. So I'd suggest you looking at the things that you might have gated, see if you can create small bite-sized content in different content forms, video, audio, podcasts, written, to be discovered, and then have that content point to longer form content that might be gated, and now you've got a stronger intent signal when they do fill out your form.
Got a question up here. Now that you're in the PMM role, how frequently do you connect with your SEs, and do you think PMMs ask for feedback from SEs enough?
Yeah, multiple times a week. In standing meetings, on Slack, in PLG working meetings that happen every week, in sales and marketing all hands when we're talking about customer wins. We have a sales Slack channel where the play-by-play of what's happening in sales. So in marketing, we're watching that. I lead a few functions, product marketing, developer relations, content, customer, AR, and community. So I've got our customer marketing person listening on that sales channel because that's what he's filling his funnel with, the pipeline of customer stories. And we don't want to do that the day they sign. They need to be using the product for some period of time, but it helps to basically fill his story pipeline.
There's another question here. How would this pivot translate to a product-led growth company?
How would it to a product-led growth company? I think you should be looking for subject matter experts in pre-sales to join your PLG effort. Absolutely. Because they're talking to customers, giving demonstrations or talking about particular narrow technical topics, if you have a product like this, let's say. And from the questions they're being asked, they can see where those friction points are, or you can infer it. Again, you can do this at scale with Gong. Find all the calls that are sort of early stage, quickly do a search, look for sort of where you've got the prospect speaking, and then be curious, maybe why does this person not understand that when they come to, but they're spending 15, 30 minutes on the call, they could have learned this off of our YouTube channel. They could have learned this off the blog. Maybe it's not discoverable enough, or maybe that content's not quite in the language they understand.
We've got time for one more. I think this is a good one. As a product marketer, I don't have the same training. Why does it always do this when I read them? So I don't have the same training, hence expertise of the platform as pre-sales. Sales sees us as content marketing. How do you change that?
First of all, I hear you. That's super common, I think. There's this idea that product marketers just produce a bunch of slide decks and maybe short product videos kind of thing. I would say be proactive about talking to those different stakeholders. I think you've seen in the last couple of days in these presentations that product marketing is sitting at the nexus of all these different functions. There's a lot of time you have to spend making relationships with those other departments and those people, and pre-sales in particular. The thing to realize is the pre-sales person may have the subject matter expertise, but they don't have the context that you are looking for, the broader context. So they don't know what questions to ask. They probably don't know what to raise up for bigger visibility, like to product management. Here's the next feature to build, or here's the next kind of user we want to target. But as a product marketer, if you spend time talking to different pre-sales people, you can call that out of there, and you can fit it in. That's the other thing. Most feedback, everybody wants to say they know how to do marketing and give marketing advice. And constantly, if I check Slack now, my internal Slack, I'll see all these messages. Will, we should have an animation like this. We should have a graphic like this. That's fine. Take all that input, but you have to figure out what lane to put that in, at what stage. So if you have these frameworks, you can be effective in taking that and sort of being the router to get it to the right place, or maybe it's something you need to build, or maybe it's some interview that you need to do to understand more deeply what is that situation.
That's great. Thanks so much. Really appreciate your insights today.
Thank you.
Yep.